Wherever you want to sit. Okay, we have a lot more ground to cover, so I'm going to ask that we get started. The format of the afternoon is just like the format of the format of now is just like the format of earlier. I do want to mention one thing that we got from the web. I just want to point out that we had an overwhelming response to the question about fatigue. And so it sounds like we could have had a lot more discussion on any topic, but on that one too. So if those on the web and you hear fatigue is one thing really to discuss further in the docket. We have 5 panelists to kick off our discussion of topic 2 on the treatment approaches. And so what we're looking here, and again, the questions that were guiding our discussion are on the second half of your agenda, is what you're currently doing to treat your condition and the symptoms, and what specific aspects of your condition that addresses, and how well does it do so, and the downsides to those treatments, and then an ideal treatment. We are going to be covering a wide range of treatments, pharmaceutical, surgical, devices, etc. As we go through, we'll try to pull out as much as we can the role of pharmaceutical treatments in that. But we have 5 great panel comments to get us started, and we have someone who is participating on the phone. And so I'm going to start with her. Her name is Anne. Anne, are you on the phone?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Again, we've asked them each to prepare a few minutes of comments. So, Anne, we would love for you to kick us off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me speak. I was diagnosed with diarrhea predominant IBS 26 years ago after a month-long bout of diarrhea. Today, I continue to have frequent, at times daily, diarrhea, urgency, abdominal pains, heartburn, bloating, and incontinence. Over the 26 years that I've had this, I have alternated conventional medicine treatments and complementary medicine approaches. I've tried different dietary protocols, taken prescription and over-the-counter meds, tried acupuncture, homeopathy, chiropractic, Chinese herbal remedies, supplemental vitamins, and minerals. I get temporary relief, but none of the treatments have been permanent or even last very long. In the first 2 years, I first tried a restricted diet, and I took Xanax, Lomotil, Imodium, antispasmodic, and some fiber products. When those didn't work, I tried complementary medicine approaches. The Chinese herbs were the most effective, but they were very difficult to take, and I wasn't sure they were safe. And then I couldn't take them because of insurance issues, and I had to stop. Over the 26 years, I also took part in several studies that included support groups, hypnosis, and therapy sessions specifically for IBS, which included just reading information, breathing techniques, and meditation practice. Some were more effective than others, at least temporarily. I also tried antidepressants, Dicipramine, which had scary side effects, so I didn't take it, Lexapro, Cymbalta, Wellbutrin. It didn't really help. In between each alternative treatment, I would go back on the Imodium. So in some ways, it's the most reliable for short-term relief. It also has a rebound effect, and I developed a tolerance to it, so I have to keep taking more and more. A few years ago, I was taking verapamil for palpitations and found it to be very effective in controlling the diarrhea and the pain. This was probably the longest lasting relief I ever had. But the verapamil had some dangerous side effects, and I had to stop. And then the diarrhea came back worse than ever. Again, I tried acupuncture, hypnosis, Chinese herbs. And then I went back on the Imodium. Again, it didn't work completely, and I was getting a rebound effect. Over the past 3 or 4 years, the IBS has become progressively worse. I've had multiple episodes of bad diarrhea, urgency, stomach incontinence, abdominal pain, gas, bloating, heartburn, a little bit of nausea. 2 years ago, I was taking up to 8 Imodium caplets a day, so they did not always work. I still had diarrhea almost every day, sometimes more than once. 2 years ago, in the fall of 2013, I consulted with a naturopath. She prescribed several supplements, such as probiotics, some vitamin support, and some minerals. Two of the supplements, glutamine and activated charcoal, seem to have the most immediate release. The naturopath believes that taking Imodium as much as I do, or as much as anyone does, may make it harder for the GI system to heal properly. The naturopath also put me on a low FODMAP diet. FODMAP are basically carbohydrates or sugars that are osmotic, means they pull in water from the digestive tract and they don't digest or absorb well and could become fermented, aggravating the IBS. The combination of the FODMAP diet and the supplements seemed to work better than most other treatments. I was definitely better for a while. However, the low FODMAP diet is very restrictive and hard to maintain, even over the initial 6 weeks. It's an elimination diet where you will reintroduce foods a little, one at a time. After about 15 months of relative well-being, the diarrhea, urgency, and stomach pain now continue on and on. The symptoms can occur at any time, any place. Bad days cause me a great deal of anxiety and depression, and I have a hard time concentrating, focusing on other tasks. I lose motivation. I become obsessed about my symptoms. Certain foods can make it worse, but sometimes it's just dairy, just eating that triggers an episode. Currently then, to address the IBS, I'm taking Bentil, which is an antispasmodic, a probiotic, vitamin D, digestive enzymes, fish oil, glutamine, and other herbal combinations, plus, if I need it, Imodium and the activated charcoal. I feel that the IBS is barely managed. Over the years, I've seen 6 or 7 different gastroenterologists. None of the treatments have been totally successful. I feel that conventional medicine has not really taken into consideration the debilitating effect of the symptoms or the effect on my daily life. I sometimes wonder whether other diagnostic tools may lead to better treatment. I think I have had more positive and encouraging results from complementary medicine, though even there, nothing has been permanent. Complementary medicine has provided other diagnostic tools and other treatments that are not available in conventional medicine. Obviously, I would like to find a cure for the IBS, but if anything, something to treat the symptoms, the diarrhea, urgency, incontinence, and the pain. We need meds or other treatments that will prevent the symptoms of poor digestion and poor absorption and would reduce the inflammation that actually causes the diarrhea. IBS seems to be more of a confluence of symptoms, so a gentle med or supplement without the possibility of serious side effects, without the rebound effect, one that would not be too tolerant, would be a tremendous relief. On an immediate basis, I would like to have a medicine or supplement that would have a very immediate result so that I feel an episode coming on, I'd be able to avoid it and gain some security wherever I am. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much, Anne. And you can't see us in the room as well, but you have been speaking to a group that understands and has been nodding their heads to what you're saying, so we thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Now we will go on and have Lynn. If you could just push the red button and speak into the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn Wolfson, and I'm here from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am honored to be here. I came to speak about my rare genetic disorder, Hirschsprung's disease. I was born with this disease and have had it all 56 years of my life. Consequently, the intestines, which do not have ganglion cells or have ganglion cells which are formed but not functioning, do not have rhythmic peristalsis. This results in severe constipation, vomiting, obstructions, distension, intestinal ruptures, and lots of pain. There is no cure for Hirschsprung's disease. I spent the first 4 years of my life taking milk of magnesia, getting enemas and suppositories regularly, and eating very little. I was very much underweight, constipated, projectile vomiting, and frequently in pain. I began my surgeries in 1963 at the age of 4. I had a full rectal thickness biopsy, an intestinal resection, an intestinal rupture, a colostomy, and a colostomy closure by the time I was 8 years old. By the time I became an adult, I had very bad reflux. I was still very much underweight. I was 5'4.5" and 103 pounds when I got married at age 27. I tried many medications for GERD, such as Reglan, Zantac, Prevacid, Prolosic, Tagamet, and Protonix. Nothing seemed to work. During the delivery of my first child, I was vomiting bile and then blood. In addition, I would get severe intestinal infections while pregnant. After my second child was born, I had a laparoscopic Nissan fundoplication. The vomiting finally stopped. However, my abdomen grew very large. I had severe abdominal pains and multiple intestinal infections. My lungs started to become affected from the pressure from my abdomen. I developed asthma as an adult. My pain started to worsen. I was in a lot of pain after eating. My distension grew until I looked 6 months pregnant. I was severely constipated. I was physically unable to defecate. I had another full rectal thickness biopsy to check for ganglion cells, like when I was 4 years old. In 2002, the colorectal surgeon was shocked to find that I was still positive for Hirschsprung's disease. There were no ganglion cells present on any of the biopsies. The surgeon repeated the surgery I had when I was a child. 5 days later, another intestinal rupture and my second colostomy. In 2003, I had more surgery. During this surgery, my colostomy was closed down, my rectum was removed. I had a coloanal connection and an ileostomy was formed. Unfortunately, I also lost 15 units of blood and ended up on life support in trauma intensive care for 5 days. During this surgery, several nerves were inadvertently slashed, causing me to have a neurogenic bladder and neuropathy in my legs. The ileostomy was closed a few months later. The constipation, nausea, and pain continued. My gallbladder was removed. My constipation issues got worse. I was taking prescription laxatives multiple times a day, lost total fecal control, was in pain, and still had fecal impactions. I was still very thin. In April 2006, it was found that 90% of my colon was non-functioning. In addition, my fifth cervical disc had herniated and ruptured as a result of malnutrition. In August 2006, I had the surgery to remove my entire colon, rectum, and anus and to get a permanent ileostomy. I started to do better. I finally started to gain some weight. My ileostomy is the best thing to happen to me. No more laxatives, enemas, suppositories, sitting on the toilet, constipation, or rectal exams. In 2008, more surgery with a new ileostomy. In 2011, I had another intestinal obstruction, more surgery, another ileostomy. In September 2012, I got sepsis, and then 10 days later, sepsis again. I tried going off of TPN in December 2012. It lasted until April 2013, when I could not tolerate the pains from eating. I started J-tube feedings in May. I had another obstruction in June 2013. More surgery in August 2013 with the 7th ostomy and a GJ tube. I'm happy to say that my last hospitalization was in July 2014. I am now going to Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, who has been able to manage my condition so I can have quality of life. I eat very minimally, wear my J-tube feeding, and hook up my gastric bag when I feel nauseated or bloated. Bottom line is, I am the happiest bag lady. I do find the area around the J-tube to develop skin tabs and to be very sore. I have tried silver nitrate and stoma adhesive powder. Nothing seems to work. I just keep the area clean and the plate of my tube within a 1/4 inch of my abdomen. My J-tube is 750 cc's of Peptamen 1.5 daily. I have found this formula works much better for me than when I was on Vivanex Plus with Prostat, baby rice cereal, and glutamine. I also take a line to minimize my bloating symptoms. I have hyoscyamu to take prior to eating, but find that it makes me too tired. I prefer to lay down after I eat for 1 to 2 hours for the pain to dissipate. It is very important to me to have a clear head and to be in control. In addition, I also take vitamin C and methenamine hippurate to make my urine more acidic, to reduce the quantity of urine infections from catheterizing. For my intestinal absorption issues, I take sodium bicarbonate and magnesium gluconate. I find that the most difficult part of the day is the pain I get about an hour after eating, which lasts up to 2 hours. I have not found a medication which I could take, which does not make me tired or make my head foggy. I also find that the formula does not give me enough strength to make it through the day without taking a 2-hour nap. I have periods of time where the pain does not dissipate after 2 hours and continues for days to weeks. I believe this is when I get pseudo-obstructions or intestinal infections. Unfortunately, there is nothing to be done during those times. This occurs every 4 to 6 months. I have a wonderful nurse with me 8 hours a day and my service animal, Zev. He helps me up and down steps and curves, carries my handbag, lets me know when my ostomy bag is leaking, and can carry things in his mouth for me. I am very grateful to have been given the gift of life. I am married for 29 years and have 2 beautiful daughters who are both biomedical engineers and in medical school. I am very active within my community. I swim, I tutor students in math, knit hats for cancer patients, run a book club, lobby for more money to be appropriated by Congress for research in digestive diseases, and I travel the world with my family. My goal is to inspire others to live life to their fullest despite their intestinal illnesses. I do this by sharing my story with professionals such as you who can make changes to improve the life of others with digestive diseases. I dream of the day when no one will be born with Hirschsprung's disease.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Now we'll have Jillian.
Hi, my name is Jillian Tilson, and I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I have had gastroparesis symptoms for as long as I can remember. Constant nausea, stomach pain, inability to exercise, weight gain, ongoing breathing issues, and lung pain. I have pushed myself to live a normal life because doctors told me nothing was wrong. In October of 2009, my body collapsed. From then on, my lungs stayed full. I threw up every meal. My heart rate stayed elevated, my blood pressure high, and I was unable to breathe or move without difficulty. My weight went up to 240 pounds, although I could not keep a single meal down. I often was unable to stand up or walk on my own. For the next 4 years, I went to specialist to get answers. I kept hearing there was no reason for me to be so sick. I asked several doctors to be referred to a GI. None would because I was too sick. At the end of 4 years, I was told there was nothing else that could be done for me. In desperation, I researched local acupuncturists, made an appointment. Within minutes, she told me my digestive tract was not able to digest food properly. She instructed me to eat only chicken broth and crock-pot chicken until I felt stronger. She gave me an acupuncture treatment from which I immediately felt improvement for the first time in 4 years. For the next 8 months, my doctors were amazed by my sudden improvement, but doubted I had gastroparesis. I asked to be referred to a GI again. They refused. After 8 months, I had a really bad flare. But one doctor finally agreed to send me to a GI for the purpose of proving to me I did not have gastroparesis. That GI ended up diagnosing me with severe gastroparesis and inertia of the small intestine. Immediately, I was prescribed Zofran and banned from eating all vegetables. Soon after, he put me on Reglan because I was having severe fatigue issues. I was able to start eating regularly, suffered less nausea and dizziness, but still suffered from severe fatigue. With Reglan, I was able to reduce Zofran use by quite a bit, but not completely. This past February, I had a Botox injected into my pylorus. I feel like a different person. I can now drink water, expand what I eat. Because my insurance does not like covering Botox, I am scheduled for a pyloroplasty later this summer. But even after the Botox, I was having severe fatigue issues and excessively high heart rate. A cardiologist determined that my metabolism was off kilter from being sick for so long and was acting like I was still in the middle of that where I was a few years ago. 3 weeks ago, I started dietitiazem, a medicine that was not a beta blocker because of the aspiration issues. It is steadily increasing my energy without excessive heart rate. As a result of severe aspiration, I have an extreme sensitivity to smoke, chemicals, and the residues, leading to multiple ER visits. Recently, a dietitian contacted me to try vitamin E due to studies that it helps build allergic responses in the respiratory system. The full effect kicks in after 16 weeks. After 6 weeks, I am seeing improvement. I can now handle some exposures with little effect if I take my rescue inhaler as soon as possible. Gummy vitamins, vitamin D, and probiotics help my system function. I am continuing with acupuncture with great success, and yoga has helped me in getting my bowels to move regularly. Nutrition drinks are not an option for me since I am soy and dairy intolerant, unable to handle dairy or dairy substitutes and corn sweeteners. A change I would like to see made for gastroparesis symptoms is to include weight gain in addition to weight loss as a critical symptom of gastroparesis. GES testing should be included for those who are suffering ongoing, unidentified GI issues as part of the standard testing regime. Thank you, and thank you so much for having this meeting for us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jillian. Now I have Meredith.
Hi, I'm Meredith Holt. I live in Washington, D.C. I have a diagnosis right now of chronic unexplained nausea and vomiting, but I say that with some trepidation because I've also had a diagnosis of gastroparesis. So basically, I sometimes pass and sometimes fail the gastric emptying studies. Treatment for me since 2010 has included, for my terrible, debilitating nausea and vomiting, domperidone. I've also had multiple Botox injections to the pyloric valve, various PPIs, Phenergan, Zofran, Marinol, dietary modifications, Reglan. I eventually ended up on TPN and then on feeding tubes. And then in August of 2013, following a 2.5-month inpatient hospitalization result because I could no longer even take in tepid water, my GI doctors started me on a trial of Zyprexa, which is currently on the market as an atypical antipsychotic medication to treat my nausea because there was one small study that showed that Zyprexa might be efficient treating nausea. And within literally 30 days, I had a complete turnaround in my Zyprexa I take now daily. I still have Marinol and Zofran as PRNs to take when my nausea flares. Right now, I'm very fortunate to be able to eat relatively normally. I still have to avoid high-fiber foods. Like, I still dream of eating a green salad. I can't drink thick liquids. Fatty foods tend to trigger abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting. But the Zofran is very effective at treating the nausea and the vomiting. So I also had a really drastic surgery in 2012 called a median arcuate ligament release that was meant to alleviate some of the pain and bloating that I had with my gastroparesis. Also unsuccessful. So I'm very grateful that Zyprexa has worked for me. It has been a complete game changer. It keeps me out of the hospital. I haven't been in the hospital for gastroparesis since August of 2013. I was able to have my feeding tube removed after 2 or 3 months of starting the Zyprexa. I don't think Zyprexa does anything to cure my GI dysmotility, but it does keep the major symptoms at bay. So for that, I am grateful. And I'm able to work full-time. I still struggle, like many of you, at a lot of social events because social events are centered around food, often fatty foods, which is very tricky. I feel, again, super grateful that Zyprexa has really changed the quality of my life over the last couple of years.
Thank you very much, Meredith. And finally, we have Carol.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the FDA for giving me this opportunity to share the devastating effects of digestive disorders. My name is Carol Passenkoff. I have GERD, chronic constipation, and idiopathic gastroparesis. I cannot eat more than a few bites of food, and I am tube-fed. Every single day, I suffer from unrelenting nausea, abdominal swelling, pain, regurgitation, burping that sometimes is constant, and constipation. Some days are worse than others, and on my really bad days, I am bedridden. I never know what to expect day to day and sometimes hour to hour. Due to the unpredictability of my symptoms, I cannot work, I have difficulty performing everyday tasks and chores, and have become isolated from my friends and social activities. Through the years, I have tried everything that is available, including Botox injections into the pylorus muscle, erythromycin, Reglan, which has a black box warning from the FDA, Marinol, Cyotec, Mestinon, Carafate, herbal and holistic remedies, and many different proton pump inhibitors. None of these helped. Every day I take over 10 different medications to treat my symptoms, including 4 medications specifically for nausea, in which some days they don't help at all. The nausea is brutal. I cannot function at all when they don't help. Some anti-nausea drugs like promethazine and comethazine causes too many side effects for me. Some drugs that can possibly help with this nausea, such as Emend, my insurance will not cover because they are specifically for people who are undergoing chemotherapy. These drugs are extremely expensive. I was prescribed domperidone, which is not FDA approved, and it gives me minimal relief, even taking the maximum dosage. I was on Zelnorm, which helped my severe constipation, but it was pulled from the market. I was put on Amitiza, which helped with the constipation, but caused me to faint. My chronic constipation became so severe that I had to have 90% of my colon removed. I still have constipation and need to take Linzest every day, as well as over-the-counter products to help me have a bowel movement. Prior to being approved for the gastric electric stimulator, I was vomiting everything I ate and drank and was severely malnourished and dehydrated. I was placed on TPN for 2 years, but after becoming septic twice, TPN was stopped. A G-tube was placed in my stomach for decompression, which helps empty my stomach of bile through the day, and a J-tube was placed in the small intestine for feeding. I have been tube-fed through the J-tube for the last 9 years. As per my doctor's advice, every day I try to eat a few bites of food. No matter what I eat, and sometimes when I haven't even eaten, I burp, regurgitate, and my abdomen becomes very distended to the point where I look like I'm 7 months pregnant. Heating pad or an ice pack and a tramadol do little to alleviate my pain. My doctors will not prescribe any stronger pain med, as any opiate causes constipation. At the moment, being tube-fed and taking the numerous supplements and drugs keeps me alive and nourished. But there is no cure for gastroparesis. Doctors try to treat all the symptoms. Some days my symptoms are tolerable, but most days I have no relief. My doctors say they have tried everything that is available to treat my symptoms, and although they now believe that the motility of my small intestine and esophagus are slowing down, there is still no further treatment options that can be recommended. This is very depressing, and I hold on to the hope that something will be developed to specifically treat the symptoms of gastroparesis. There are clinical trials going on in the United States to treat people who have gastroparesis caused by diabetes, but many of us who have gastroparesis do not have diabetes. An ideal treatment for my condition would be a drug that is developed that can help alleviate the extreme nausea from gastroparesis. Also a drug to increase motility in the stomach that can diminish the bloating and pain after a few bites of food and enable me to eat like a normal person. Although I have the gastric electric stimulator, also known as the pacer, it does not actually pace the stomach. It sends signals to the stomach to help reduce nausea and vomiting. Perhaps a device can be developed that actually assists the stomach in contracting. Thank you for this opportunity for speaking to the FDA today.
Thank you very much, Carol. Again, you up here, you can stay up here, or you can head back to your chairs, whatever you feel more comfortable doing. I'm just going to head over. It takes a couple seconds, and I never know that, so usually everyone misses the first word I say. I've learned to wait. Again, oh, the puppy needed some air. Again, please Please, another round of applause to these women and to Anne. And to Zev, and to Zev. Thank you, Zev. I think you're the first of our four-legged friends to have joined us in one of these meetings. There was a lot that we heard in these panel comments today. We heard about, I'll call it multimodal for lack of anything, but it doesn't even get close to what you're dealing with. But the combination, the complexity of the surgeries, the devices, the treatments, the treatments that you've had to try over and over. For some of you, it's managed things better, and for others, you still are struggling as much as you have been. Does this resonate with you? Do you hear your experiences in here, even if the details aren't the same? Okay. Then we think, again, that you have represented the patients in the room well. We have as much of a challenge to get through topic 2 as we had through topic 1, and we will take it as we go. I want to first ask a question about pharmaceutical treatments that you're on, and we have a polling question for you in the room and on the web if you can get your clickers. Does anyone need one? Raise your hand if you need one. Everyone's got one? Okay. This is where it gets to be a real test for me because I can't always pronounce the drug names. So if I stumble, please help me out here for FDA. Have you ever used any of the following prescription or investigational drug therapies to help reduce the symptoms of your GI disorder? Amitiza, Linzess, linaclotide. If anyone needs me to read them out, I will. Otherwise, I'll just let you read them here. One of the largest is other. We'll try to tease that out a little bit more. And proton pump inhibitors. But it looks like there's several of you taking a number of other things except Lotrinex. We don't have on here. On the web, do we have experiences?
So 53% say other, 66% say Prilosec or proton pump inhibitor, and then the other ones are very similar.
Okay. Now remember, this is not at all a survey. This is not research here. It's just to get a sense of what you're collectively trying in the room. We heard descriptions about the products and have worked really well or have not worked really well. Let's find, if anyone wants to build on what we heard, especially from Meredith. Again, it's not so much exactly what treatment it is, but how you knew what you valued out of a treatment when you think it really worked for you. What you noticed in the improvement, how long it took, et cetera. Those are the types of things we'd like to hear about. So can we start? We'll start here with Betty Marie, and then we'll go on. A pharmaceutical treatment that has worked for you well.
Recently, well, a little over a year and a half ago, I started on Mestinon. The autonomic neurologist started me on that. But what's great is I'm actually able to start eating again. I'm eating tiny bits of food, and so that's huge. But it's also helped my skeletal muscles. And one thing that showed improvement was she bumped the dose up, and my niece came over, spent the night. I actually sat up with her, watched a movie, and then the next morning I put this headband on her, and I helped wrap her hair around it. We dried her hair, and I can't even do my own hair. Like, I have my CNA help me with mine. And so that, being able to spend time with her and helping her do her hair that day was a huge sign of improvement. So sometimes, like, little things that just improve the quality of life, like spending time with family, with friends, little things like that can really make the biggest difference in life.
Can you just repeat what the name of the product was?
Mestinon.
Anyone else have an experience they'd like to share? If you're on the web, please do so. We have back here.
The panelists, I'm sorry for the panelists who have not had luck with domperidone. I have had tremendous luck with domperidone. Domperidone makes it possible for me to eat.
One more here.
I just want to second that. As I said before, when I was diagnosed with gastroparesis and I had tried other things like dietary change and small meals, nothing had any effect. And when I started on domperidone, I had immediate, complete, reliable relief, which I've had for the past 4.5 years. I mean, that drug has been a godsend. And I have had absolutely no adverse effects. If I miss a dose, I'm immediately nauseous. So needless to say, that does not happen often, but it has worked wonderfully for me with absolutely no problems.
Right here, we'll go with Elizabeth.
Thanks. I was that way. Not to be boring, but I advocate the domperidone treatment. I was in a bad, very dark place. It saved my life, literally. I've been on it for about 7 years with great success. I have a quality of life. I feel very blessed. There is, however, a great deal of frustration because it is not an FDA-approved drug. And there are many challenges that go along with that. So, that's a whole nother discussion.
Is this about this drug or a different drug? Oh, you can. Oh. You can go ahead. We will transition to a negative.
Hello? Okay, sorry. With the domperidone, I hear that it's really helping a lot of people, and I know it's different for each case of gastroparesis, but what's really frustrating is I can't get a doctor to prescribe that to me, no matter what I tell them, no matter how many times I've gone crying to them that I need something. I've taken Zofran, Phenergan, promethazine, PPIs, everything that you guys have taken, and it's really unconventional, but the only thing that helps me be able to get through the day is marijuana. And I can't even get Marinol, even though it actually does help. I can go to school, I can eat, I have an appetite. I don't get nauseous if I smoke before I eat as well, but it's illegal. And I don't want to be smoking it because it has adverse effects. My biggest problem is there's these treatments out there, and yet they make it seem so difficult, and there's like all this red tape and all this things that you have to go through just to get help. Like I'm not even seeing a GI doctor till July 7th to even discuss domperidone. That's 2 months away, and that's just, really disheartening.
We have heard in many of the comments that were sent in to help us prepare the difficulty in getting the care and the treatment and getting the treatments you want. So that point is very well taken. So thank you. It was a perfect point to make, so thank you very much. Can we, on the web, are we getting anything about treatments that have worked well and what's made them work?
Let's see. We have received a few treatments that did not work too well.
Okay, so go ahead and say those.
Okay, similar to what was said in the room. Reglan did not work. Side effects were too bad. Xifaxan caused lightheadedness and stomach pain. Some people said that they've tried Zofran, Amitsa, and neither worked. Linzess didn't work, and it caused intense pain. We did have a few that said that they also tried the domepridone. Apologize for saying that wrong. A few people said that it did not work for them. Some said they were too scared to use it, while another did say it worked well and it gave some feeling of hunger.
To the FDA panel, we do have some time if you want to explore any on this list, any that surprised you that you wanted to hear more about, or anything before we move on. Donna.
Just a quick follow-up question. So the Marinol, the reason why you can't get that, is it just because it's not covered by your insurance because of the indication, or?
My doctor just told me to go to Colorado and try getting it there. That was his actual words, because it's illegal.
I was curious about the people that said that domperidone worked for them. I was just wondering, in light of our previous conversation, what particular symptoms did it relieve for the people that it worked for?
So I have gastroparesis, and the way I describe my sensation is that it is nauseating, but it's nauseating because I have a chronic condition of sewer mouth. It's like gases coming back up from my GI system, exiting in the wrong direction. Domperidone is a magic bullet for me in a very small dose, 10 milligrams twice a day, taken before breakfast and dinner. And I can't eat without having that experience, and unless I take the domperidone.
And just as a quick follow-up, for me, it immediately relieved the nausea which I had, which just nothing else did anything to relieve at all, but it was instantaneous.
I think we had one. We have lots of experience.
I actually am going back one to the Marinol because I didn't get to get my hand raised. The Marinol, we've all through the country talked about this with the marijuana, where there are so many people that are finding so much relief from the marijuana through the country, who are, some doctors have even put some of the medications down and have them just using the marijuana, which is actually stimulating appetite, decreasing pain. So I'm not sure, and decreasing the nausea as well. The Marinol, there were some that helped. Most people that took that said it didn't help them where the marijuana did. But I do want to acknowledge on that because we have so much discussion on a daily basis that goes on about that product helping.
Thank you very much, Tanya. Okay, we'll take one more, and then we'll go to take two more. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to comment on the domperidone. I had a hard time obtaining it, even though I had an IND licensed prescriber at Johns Hopkins. I was told I had to get it from Canada while I was hospitalized at Hopkins. But I knew my own research, and I knew there were certain compounding pharmacies that were FDA as far as the powder itself approved. So while I was admitted, I found a local pharmacy who, my mom was nice enough to drive there and pick it up, and then they started giving it to me while I was in the hospital. At that time, I was on TPN, and it took a while. I was doing 10 milligrams 4 times a day. After a week, I still wasn't seeing any improvement, so they bumped me up to 20 milligrams 4 times a day. I was discharged with an NJ tube because I still wasn't getting anything, and I didn't want to do a bunch of other factors in the mix because I wanted to know, as far as variables, what was working and what wasn't. So I was discharged. I was still on the 20 milligrams 4 times a day. After 2 weeks of being home, my NJ tube got clogged, so we pulled it out. But we didn't put another one in. Rather, I went to baby food and liquids. And after another week, I was starting to be able to eat again. So for me, yes, domperidone has worked, but it hasn't been complete success because after the 20 milligrams, I started with the prolactin elevations. So I had to go back down to 10 milligrams. And I know that at times I have to stop completely off of it because I became refractory to Reglian because it just stopped working. And I'm afraid that if I continue to use domperidone continuously, I'm going to get the same reaction. So I I peak for a while and use it, and then I come off of it, then I use it, and then I come off of it. But just to give you an experience.
Thank you very much, Mary. We'll have Lynn.
Hi, there was one thing that we hadn't discussed. I find, even though I'm on, and I haven't heard anyone else mention it, when I was on TPN and also on J-tube feeding, I find the hardest part is dealing with the hunger that I still get. And if I eat, then I'm in pain. So it's dealing with that hunger, and I was wondering if there's a medication, I don't know if anyone else is having that problem with still feeling hunger, if there's a medication that could take that hunger away, so we wouldn't have to determine whether or not we want the pain of hunger or the pain from eating.
Anyone have an experience that can address Lynn? Something that has addressed that? And on the web, if you invite you to send in a comment if you do. Maybe we'll go with Tanya.
I understand what you mean about that pain, whether your stomach's empty or not, because either way, it's a lot of pain. I started eating ice a couple of years ago when I wasn't able to tolerate anything at all. And I very rarely get hungry. It just doesn't happen. But when there's rare occasions that I do get hungry, I start eating the crushed ice, and that is the only thing that I've been able to do to help subside that pain that you're talking about.
Let's go into other types of downsides of treatments that you're on. Again, we don't necessarily care exactly what treatment it is, but what downsides bother you most of the pharmaceutical treatments that you've tried. So we'll start here with Catherine.
I just think it's a huge problem that you will be prescribed something to help a symptom, but the side effects are that symptom. The antidepressants that are supposed to help slow down gastric symptoms, gastric emptying, and that really worries me. I'm taking a drug that actually could be counterproductive.
Any other? Okay, we'll go there with Meredith.
Lest anybody think that I'm saying that Zyprexa is like a magic bullet drug, I want to add that the side effects I have from that are hyperglycemia, so I'm now pre-diabetic, and I actually have to take a diabetes drug to lower my blood sugars, that the Zyprexa is increasing. I also gained a ton of weight really fast, and also now have some cholesterol issues, not related to food, but related to Zyprexa. And then secondly, the surgical intervention that I had, the median arcuate ligament release, which is albeit a rare treatment, for whatever reason during the surgery, I developed I'm drawing a blank of words. I developed Addison's disease. What are they called? Adrenal glands infarcted during the surgery, so now I have Addison's as another sort of diagnosis. So I feel like there's certainly no magic bullet on the market. We all have side effects from the drugs that are meant to treat our symptoms.
Any other downsides, Betty Marie?
Just a few points. Years ago, I tried so many different medications, and you just feel like a lab rat trying them. And then also, you start like, did that help? Did it not help? And it almost gets to be a mind game at times. So you just kind of have to go with it and just not even think about it. And if you notice a difference, that's great. Also, I'm on many different medications, and the cost just adds up. Thankfully, I have good health insurance. As I mentioned earlier, I worked for 14 years, and I officially retired due to medical reasons. Sounds so much nicer than disabled, but or on disability. But any event, insurance is a huge issue for covering the therapies. The TPN itself is really expensive, and looking into some of the different types of health care plans through the health market, they didn't cover everything. The Medicaid didn't cover the different doctors that I could see. Right now I'm paying my COBRA, and that's $750 a month just to have the good insurance. But now I will transition into Medicare, and I've heard some horror stories with going into Medicare. So that's just, I can go on forever about that, but they're just some major issues that people face. Now, as a young adult, when I was trying to gain my independence, I was on my parents' plan, then I was on Medicaid and Medicare actually back then, but trying to become independent and trying to get a job was another issue, all while on IV nutrition and covering all of my therapies. But where there's a will, there can be a way at times.
Thank you very much. Are we getting anything on the web?
So we've also heard a few people say that they're using gastric pacemakers, an Entera device to control nausea. We've also gotten more feedback on domperidone saying that it's worked and it's relieved nausea and pain. One person tried desipramine and said they had tachycardia issues. Several also mentioned erythromycin, and a few said it didn't work, it caused more pain. And also Reglan, a few others mentioned that it's had some neurological side effects.
Thank you. Before going off of the...
Insurance, what's really frustrating is when you find something that helps and then the insurance is denying it. For the first time in years, I was switched to Nexium and I wasn't having all of that regurgitation in my mouth, but now the insurance is saying, oh, I have to go back and try these other medications. Well, I've done that. Like, it's been 25 years. So it's really frustrating. And that's just one little example of the insurance denying stuff.
So with thinking of these downsides, I want to have one question before we move on that's going to focus in on side effects. Has anyone in the room or on the web stopped a medication that was working for you to a degree that you would say, yes, I can tell this works for me, but you stopped it because of some side effect or some adverse reaction that you were having? We have Carol, and then we have Meredith.
Promethazine actually is the one medicine that does help me with my nausea, but it causes me to have restless leg syndrome. And if I take more than one promethazine, I will be up for days, like pacing the house, rubbing my legs, putting heating pads on them. I mean, I can't take it.
But you still take it when you've just cut back on it. You still take it at some. You still take it sometimes.
If I'm very desperate and I'm miserable and rolled up in bed, yes, I will take it, but I do suffer the side effects for it.
Okay, thank you, Meredith, and then someone back here.
Reglan was showing promise for me years ago when I started taking it, but I quickly started developing some early tardive dyskinesia.
Okay, and so you stopped. And one more back here.
Kind of along the same lines of I can't take any of the drugs, Reglan, Compazine, Phenergan, anything that crosses the brain-gut barrier. I have some neurological issues. They all cause me to be really restless and jittery and anxious, and they had to stop them because they were afraid of permanent neurological damage, which I do end up having neurological damage, but they were afraid. They had to stop it early because of that fear.
So we could tee up the phone if anyone who's remotely participating wants to address one of those two questions, either one a product that you're taking that we haven't talked about that has worked wonders for you, or a product that was working pretty well or had some benefit but you had to stop taking it because of a side effect. And again, we don't really care about what those treatments are, but what those side effects were and what that benefit was. And while we do that, then I'm going to move on to our next polling question. We know that it's not just pharmaceutical treatments. You have reiterated that. But besides those drugs, therapies that we've been talking about, what else are you doing to help reduce your symptoms or manage your functional GI disorder? You can choose all that apply. And I'll just let you read through those. I think if you could put another, yes, it doesn't. We'll just explain what you mean, because over the counter is a hard one. Lots of stuff is over the counter. We don't define that very well. But if that's what you included there, that's good to know. Okay. So dietary management is the most frequent in here in the room. And on the web, what do we have is the top most frequent ones?
Dietary management at 82% and over the counter at 59 and nothing else above 45.
Okay. So I don't think we need to get too much more into dietary management. I think we heard it very nicely so far. So we can delve into a few of these. We did hear about, well, let's talk about the over-the-counter ones. And just briefly, what did you include in that when you were talking about those? What type of medicines? Was it the medicines to treat mainly gastrointestinal symptoms, or were there some other symptoms that you're trying to address with an over-the-counter? I think we probably have a sense of what the over-the-counters are. And I think we have a sense of what the medical devices or the surgical treatments. I'm going to guess that the gastroparesis patients in here are a large part of that. Are there any other devices or surgical treatments that have not yet been described that have worked that have been very important to you? Okay, then we'll come here. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is perhaps the first patient advocate. I'm the mother of a deceased gastroparesis patient, and he did have a gastric, someone else did mention an implant or a pacer, as they called it. So that was in its initial stage, that was about 8 years ago. It was quite effective, and they considered, at that time, this was done at Temple University, which was one of the locations that was a special place that you could get medications that hadn't been approved, whether they came from Canada or not. And we did, in fact, use a compounding pharmacy for some of the medications, which had the effect. Some were very effective for a time. But I think it's important to mention this pacer because it can be very effective for people. And when it was initially introduced, it was considered that it would be effective if it did anything. Not that it made you totally better, if it did anything. So to that extent, it was effective for my son. And initially, the first 4.5 years, I think it did fairly well. And then, but you have to, I don't know if there are newer versions, but the version he had to have the battery replaced, which is kind of funny when you think about it. And so at 5, things got worse and worse, and I found that we were going to the emergency room, like every other week. And it finally dawned on us that maybe the darn thing wasn't working. So when the battery was replaced, it did perk up a little bit, but it never really did. It never solved the problem, but I say it's very worth investigating for those people who are having a terrible time, because any relief can be better than nothing.
Thank you very much. We'll come here.
Hi, yeah, my name's Amy. I've had gastroparesis for 3 years. I went through Botox. It did help. But then my insurance said no more because they said cosmetic surgery, even though it was helping. In January, I had a tube put into my colon, and I was very sick from it. I had 3 infections within a 6-week period. And then in March, they took the tube out, and I actually have a trap door now. And I put a hook into that every night and hook to a bag, and I run Johnson & Johnson baby shampoo through my body. Now that makes me very sick every day of my life now. And it is taken between an hour to 2.5 hours to run this bag through my body. But I am still getting sick every day from it. But my stomach is still compacted yet, but not as much. And the vomit has gotten less now, but it is working somewhat.
Thank you very much. Go back there.
I just want to talk about Entera. I do have the gastric neurostimulator, and was kind of a big lifesaver for me, but I will tell you some downsides as well. As we were increasing my rate, I started getting shocks. And so then, speaking with the Medtronic representatives and my GI docs and whatnot, we decided that I needed a covering over the leads. So we went back in laparoscopically. She put a layer of omentum over the leads, and that helped the shocking temporarily because I had, it's a progressive disorder, so at some point it wasn't doing what it should, so we increased the rate even more. And then I started the shocking again, so we had to decrease the rate. So now I'm at a catch-22. Yes, it helps, but not like it was.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone on the phone? Do we have any web comments on devices or surgeries?
Yes, we also got some comments. One person had a gastro-neurostimulator, and another one had a tube in the cecum to give retrograde enemas.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I think Anne would like to say something. Anne, are you there?
Yeah, but it wasn't about the devices, so it's okay. It's past, moment passed, so sorry, never mind.
Okay, we'll come back to you. So for, do you have a device?
Hello? Okay, there we go. I haven't had this done, and I haven't heard any stories about it, and it was only done at Johns Hopkins, but it was called a stent that gets put into your pylorus. Has anyone, that's my question.
Is that what you're getting this, are you getting this summer? No, you had a stent.
Me? No, I had a stent put in. It comes out after a while. It's not a permanent. It's the same as the Botox, right? It just sort of opens the pores out.
Dr. John Clark is my physician, and he is the one that had been running that trial, and he had good success with it, and he even asked me to do it, but because it was a clinical trial, and I live in Richmond, Virginia, it just, logistics, because I was like, well, what if it malfunctions? Can I get it taken out down there? Because my GI felt comfortable doing that, but he's like, no, you can't. You'd have to come back up here. So, but as far as it helping it, he has seen improvement in the population that he has done it in. And he said it's kind of like a segue between trying to figure out if, not really a permanent solution, but a segue to see if pyloroplasty would be a benefit. So,
thank you. So if you notice the agenda, we are at a time when we would stop, I think. But I think we can cut a little bit into the open public comment, so we can go for another 10 minutes or so with this discussion. These are the people who give me permission. You're giving me permission to do so.
I think we have about 12 people signed up for open public comment.
Okay,
so
then good. Okay. I just want a show of hands on the acupuncture, needling, herbal remedies, those more complementary things. Just a show of hands, how many of you agree with, and I don't remember who said it, one of you, Jillian, that it is a very, very important part of your overall management. So we have several hands. Okay. We won't be able to get into this, but in the docket, please feel free to explain how those are and build on what we heard. I do want to make sure that we talk about what an ideal treatment would be. So if there's any more questions any questions on any of these treatments from FDA? Okay. We've gotten a lot of rich stuff. Yes? Well, I was going to move on from these and ask a specific question. Is there one that we've talked about that? Dry.
I'd like to share about dry. Dry needling is not in every state. And I was in the process of being worked up for a small intestine transplant. Hadn't eaten for a year and a half, only ice chips. And I was walking hunched over. I didn't even know I couldn't stand up straight. So the first time I had this dry needling, 5 trigger points were released in my stomach. I didn't realize it, but I started to stand up straight that day. My stomach growled. I got a real live hunger pain, and I ate that day. Then I had dry needling again 3 days later. All told, there was 4 sessions and 48 trigger points released in my stomach, and a lot more to go. Now, when these trigger points release, it feels like a snake moving and then a balloon deflating when it actually is released. And it takes these muscles that are just strangling the intestines. And had I not done this, I would have no idea this would ever work. I started actually eating. I started eating solid food, and I have not eaten solid food in a year and a half or more at that time. But I can't eat again because you can feel the muscles contract back, and they snap back into a knot, which is just as painful as releasing the knot. But I'm really wondering if like a managed therapy of that type of looking even in that type of direction might help. Because had I not known that it would release trigger points, I really thought I was going to have to get that small intestine transplant. So I'm not looking in that direction anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a show of hands question, and it can be a show of hands on the web too. So if you want to chime in, how many of you, given today where you're at today, where you've been in the past, share the experience and the fortune of Meredith, who find that you're in a better place than you were and you feel that you're pretty well managed? Okay. So we're not going to delve into your experiences right now. I want to know a show of hands in the people who are not that fortunate and do not experience that. You're still struggling as much as you ever have been. Okay. For those of you who are raising your hands, what's absent a complete cure? That's probably outside the scope of our ability to discuss today, but what would you say, yes, I would feel this would be something that is beneficial to me? What aspect would you like to see improved? What symptom or some sort of aspect of your condition?
So I'm one of the very minorities in the room in that I have IBS and functional dyspepsia, and we have a lot of gastroparesis people in the room. I think it's different on the web. But for me, I just wish I had more options of things that I can do. And I know in the last couple years we've gotten 2 new drugs for constipation, which is fabulous. But it's like, it seems like the process must be really difficult to get these drugs through, because it's like I kind of do some research and there's things out there that might be coming, but then there's nothing coming, and there's just not a lot of options that I think are safe, because I have a belief in research. So I'm not going to go and buy the herbals and things that haven't been strictly tested. And so I think if I just had more options, I would be happier.
Okay. Anything else? Any other aspect that you're really looking for? Catherine, then we'll go with Tanya.
Mine's not really a symptom. It's really the doctors and the medical field themselves. I do have a caring doctor, and I know they can only do so much, but when it takes months, weeks, even a year to get the treatments that we need, it's ridiculous. And then you go in and your doctor doesn't take you seriously at all. You have to be practically dying in front of them to see how severe it is. So I just listening better and actually seeming like they care. I've had a lot of doctors just write me off, and it's sad. So
we had Tanya and on the phone if you want to contribute as well.
When it comes to the symptoms, pain and nausea are my 2 top. If pain and nausea could be controlled, I could feel human again. I was in the hospital one time where I can only take Demerol. I'm a poor metabolizer when it comes to most types of drugs. So when I was in the hospital and the pain was managed on IV medication, By mouth is how I take it, which barely works. But when it was managed in an IV medication and the nausea was managed, I was laughing. I was having a good time. I mean, I forgot what it was like to be human. I really forgot what it was like to be a human being again. So those two top symptoms, I think, if we could have more options with that.
We'll go here, and then, did you still have something, Elizabeth? Then we'll go to Jillian.
For me, doctor education is just huge because diagnosis is usually the hardest step. I mean, I was 45 years old before I got diagnosed. And actually, I was talking to a doctor who just is fresh out of a residency, and basically she said everything that she saw about my gastroparesis case contradicted everything she learned in medical school. And that actually kind of scares me, especially when it's a doctor that people go to as the first step.
Thank you very much, Jillian. We had Ann on the phone. Ann, I didn't quite catch what Ann wanted to be talking about.
Well, I was talking about when you were talking about the drugs that had side effects, that worked but then had side effects.
Okay.
I was going to mention verapamil, the calcium channel blocker, which is good for, I mean, I have palpitations, PACs, and I was taking that for that, but what it did is it created another problem, and it was a heart block. I had a very slow heartbeat, and so I had to take it off of it.
Okay.
So this was a side effect of a drug that's not even given for IBS, for diarrhea or IBS. But the other thing I was going to say was that I think that one of the issues is that there isn't enough research being done on alternative medicine. I realize that for a lot of people, scientific proof is what's needed, and that may be true for all of us, but I have found more success with some of these over-the-counter supplements, but I don't really know if they're safe because there is no research being done.
Thank you very much, Ann. Is there anyone else on the phone? We could take one more comment. Okay. All right, we have 2 more minutes, if I can see that far, my alarm clock. I'm going to ask, are there any final questions from the panel to ask? Then is there someone who maybe focused on pharmaceutical treatments or your symptoms or your experience with your condition that you've had this perspective or this thought and has not yet been shared? No? Well,
I was just going to say, as a patient and a healthcare professional, that the realistic life we are in right now is to ask questions, own your illness, own your symptom, be forthright about it, and never hesitate to get a second or even a third opinion, and pray that you find a physician or a healthcare provider that will listen, and that is key.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. We'll take one more, and then we will wrap it up. So, Betty Marie.
Sometimes a big part of the treatment is advocating for yourself and being aware of what's out there and what's going on, not only treatment-wise, but 2 things that really have impacted my treatment and care. I was reading articles, and I actually took the article into my doctor and said, you know, this helped that person. I wonder if that could help me. And they sent me out to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh did this radical surgery and helped take away some of the worst part of the pain. And then there was another one I read of a medication that was in trial, and they ended up connecting me with a doctor. I couldn't use it because it was still in animal trials, but out of that came me meeting a wonderful doctor who then really provided a lot of help and support. So sometimes the physicians may not be aware of things, but it's actually doing your own research and care and trying to find out about new trials and medications and treatments and surgeries and stuff. And it's not, you know, sometimes it can take years to get a diagnosis, and it's not that you want something to be wrong with you, but you start wondering, oh my goodness, I'm having this and all these tests are coming out normal. Am I imagining it? Mm-hmm. And you know you're not, because it's just stuff's not right going on in your body. That when they actually say, we finally figured out this is what's going on, it's just you want the validation that yes, something is going on in your body. And it's not that you're looking for something to be wrong, it's just that you're looking for answers to try to improve your life.
Thank you so much. And I think that is a great comment upon which to end our discussion. This has been a truly remarkable day, and please thank you from all of us to you, to our four-legged friends who have provided input. So please, a round of applause to all of you. We're going to move into open public comment because our discussion here is ended, and Pujita's going to come and do that. And I'll just put a plug in to be as concise as possible because we did dip into the open public comment time. So, but I think it was worth it. I think you'll all agree with me. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. We're now moving into the open public comment session. And for those of you who are not aware, the purpose of this session is to allow an opportunity for those who have not had a chance to speak on issues that are not related to our two main discussion topics today. This is an opportunity for folks who are not a patient or a patient representative to come up and comment. Please keep in mind that we will not be responding to your comments, but they will be transcribed and be part of the public record. Since we would like this to be a transparent process, we encourage you to note any financial interests that you may have that are related to your comment. If you do not have any such interests, you may state that for the record as well. So we have collected sign-up before the meeting and then during the break. We have 12 people signed up in about 20 minutes or so for this session. So please be respectful of your other colleagues here and other patients and try to stick to the 2-minute limit. I have a timer here, so I'll try, if you start approaching the 2-minute mark, I will kind of try to nudge you along. Yes, we have a question. Uh-huh. Have you signed up? Oh, yeah, that's fine. We'll call you.
I'm a patient.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We'll call you. So I'll run through the order of speakers, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. So we have Tegan Gaetano, Marilyn Geller, Ellen Kameners, Carissa Hafton, Amy Thor, Nancy Ginter, Kelly Brzozowski, Ritu Verma, Mary Berger, Bruce Zagnet, Debbie Fisher, and then Raymond Panas. So first, could I get Tegan to the mic, please?
I'd like to start by thanking all of the patients and family members for bringing your stories, your courageous stories here today. So my name is Tegan Gaetano. I work for a patient advocacy organization, the International Foundation for Functional Gastrointestinal Disorders, or IFFGD. And I do appreciate this opportunity to present our comments with you here today. I do have a few prepared comments. So for almost 25 years, IFFGD has been working on behalf of patients affected by the functional GI disorders. We have conducted research to learn about this population, sharing our findings with the public, the healthcare community, and with regulators such as FDA in order to advance understanding of the burden of illness and unmet needs of all of those affected. As we have heard here today, the functional GI disorders cause a tremendous individual and societal burden, both in terms of economic and personal costs. Disorders such as IBS, chronic constipation, refractory GERD, and gastroparesis can be debilitating, taking away a person's ability to participate in daily life, in family, social, educational, and employment activities. In the case of gastroparesis, the condition may sometimes be life-threatening. Although dozens of conditions have been characterized as functional GI disorders affecting the different segments of the GI tract, these conditions share many common features. Among them, they are chronic, effective treatments are few, and most are characterized by combinations of multiple symptoms that can greatly diminish quality of life. Although research into the functional GI disorders has long lagged behind the study of structural disorders, we have seen increasing interest over the past 2 decades in these disorders. What we have found is that there are too few effective treatments for these disorders, and that among patients, there is a high level of dissatisfaction with the treatments that are available. Treatments that work for simple, acute, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, stomach pain, or nausea, just to name a few, are not adequate for the chronic symptoms that accompany the functional GI disorders.
Thank you, Tegan. Sorry, 2 minutes is up. Next, could I get Marilyn Geller?
Thank you. I'm Marilyn Geller from Celiac Disease Foundation, and I was invited to speak because the symptoms of the celiac disease population really are the same symptoms as those with functional GI. The issue is for me both personal and public. Celiac Disease Foundation represents the 3 million Americans with celiac disease, about 2.5 million undiagnosed who don't realize that they have it. It's personal that I have a son who's 22 and his father who's now in his mid-50s. Both were not diagnosed for a large number of years. Our son was diagnosed first at 15 with lifelong symptoms. He suffered horrifically. His father did the same and was not diagnosed until he was 45. We spent years and thousands of dollars dealing with functional GI diagnoses. And the data that we've collected with Celiac Disease Foundation is it's quite similar. The vast majority of patients with celiac disease are diagnosed first or misdiagnosed first with functional GI disorders. And with the billions of dollars spent in the testing and the treatments for misdiagnoses, it becomes imperative that as we look at the functional GI population in the screening, that we include celiac disease testing as a standard of care. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Next we have, thank you, Marilyn. Next we have Ellen.
Thank you so much for holding this panel this afternoon. As I've said earlier, I'm a patient with severe but managed gastroparesis. Domperidone is my magic bullet. With it I can eat, without it I cannot. My gastroenterologist has informed me that there is no safe alternative to domperidone for treating my gastroparesis, and that the special permission process allowed by the FDA is opaque and overwhelming. I need domperidone to stay healthy. I am urging the FDA to put domperidone on its positive list for compounding pharmacies so that I may locally obtain safely compounded domestic domperidone, or, failing that the FDA not enforce the fact that domperidone is not on the positive list. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Next, we have Carissa Haston.
I'm Carissa Haston, and I'm the president and founder of GPACT, or the Gastroparesis Patient Association for Cures and Treatments. I just want to thank the FDA for working with us on this. We've been working for 15 years trying to get something like this going, and I have to say that, you know, we deal with tens of thousands of patients every single day, and they have been so hopeless, and finally a lot of those hopeless people are starting to feel a little bit more hope, like there might be some progress towards this, that we're finally getting the attention that we need for these conditions, and there's a real focus on it. So I just want to thank you for working with us, and I also want to thank the patients who went and filled out the survey on our website to help get prepared for this. And I encourage people to keep doing that, because that's a big part of understanding, helping them understand. A little bit about my story. I was diagnosed with gastroparesis in 1994 at the age of 16. And basically, it was like, I tried Propulsid and erythromycin, and I went into cardiac arrest. I almost died. And so they had to stop those drugs. And by the year 2000, I developed chronic intestinal pseudoobstruction. They were not able to feed me by a feeding tube, so I was started on TPN, and because my gut was so slow, I kept developing so many infections that were backing up into my bloodstream from my gut, and also because of the TPN. And I lost all my venous access. I lost down to 68 pounds. They were not able to feed me anymore. Basically sent me home from the hospital to die. And finally, they said, okay, you can go to the University of Pittsburgh for a 5-organ transplant. And so in 2006, I had a 5-organ transplant, and they did my small bowel, stomach, pancreas, duodenum, and they had to do my liver because my liver had failed on TPN. It was twice its normal size and full of fatty deposits. They did not think, when I got there, I was the sickest patient that they had ever seen, and they did not think I would even make it to the transplant. And they were fortunate to be able to find enough veins in me in Pittsburgh. Hershey had blacklisted me for central lines. Pittsburgh was able to find enough veins to get me through transplant for TPN for 13 months. I had a 13-month wait, which is longer than most people. They did not think that I was going to make it to the transplant. And when I had it done, by the time I had it done, I was so sick I had literally days, if not just hours, to live when my organs arrived.
Thank you, Carissa. Sorry. Please submit your comments to the docket. We really encourage you to do that. Sorry. Next, could I please have Amy 4? Okay, that's fine. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I'll try to finish up here. So anyway, my gastroparesis ended up coming back. I did really well for 4 years. It ended up coming back. And but I had to go back on TPN, and my liver started to fail again, so they had to eventually stop that. I finally, my colon shut down, and I had my colon completely detached a couple years ago, and now I'm on an ileostomy for life, and I'm on feeding tube now as well. And so there's not any treatment options, but I face a future of kidney failure from the transplant medications, the anti-rejection meds. I have severe osteoporosis from the steroids that they're using to treat the transplant as well. And I was legally blind for 2 years, and they don't know why, but they think possibly some of the IV antibiotics that I was on and some of the infections made me go legally blind. And it's starting to come back, but I'm still quite low vision. So anyway, there's a lot of issues that come with this that, and I'm losing myelin sheath in my brain. I have dysautonomia, and I also have mitochondrial disease, along with some other things. So there's a lot of issues that need to be addressed when dealing with treatment options, because it's not just the gut, there's other things going on as well. So.
Okay. Thank you, Carissa. Next, can I get Nancy Ginter, please?
Well, thank you all very much again. By now you know that I'm the mother of a son who had gastroparesis, and as you all also know now, it is a disastrous situation. So I want to just speak for a moment about that. Some of the points that were brought up, one is most important, I think, and that is that you all are so delightfully and importantly embracing the voice of the patient. And I think that many of the folks here have talked about that in their own experience, that if the people they were dealing with in the medical profession had listened more carefully to the voice of the patient, they would have taken that voice more seriously. And so I'm all for taking it seriously. And someone made a wonderful suggestion about improving the language that we use so that people will be truly understood, and convert the language that's being asked for to the patient's language and not the medical language, and not perhaps the standard that we use today. So that's my thought about the functional GI disorders. I happen also to work for the National Foundation for Celiac Awareness. And like Marilyn with the Celiac Disease Foundation, we're very concerned about the diagnosis of those 2.5 million Americans who do have celiac disease and don't know it. Many of them have been told that they have irritable bowel. So, like Marilyn, I hope that when that topic comes up and a doctor says you have irritable bowel, they might just think, maybe, just maybe, this patient has celiac disease. We would like, our mission is to get these folks diagnosed and to live life to the fullest, and it can't happen until they too are taken seriously, and celiac disease is considered a serious illness that can have dramatic effects, just as these functional GI disorders do. So we're all for taking it seriously, and one of the other points that I'd like to make, and I've spoken to a couple of folks today, when the nominations, as I call it, the nominations for serious diseases to be part of this program were considered, we did submit celiac disease as one of those. We did not win the Academy Award. And so I'm asking again if there's another round of consideration, if there's some time that we can submit that, and we will put it on the docket, that it be considered as part of this program as well, so it will get the attention. And again, as we have a new campaign, we say, seriously, celiac disease.
Thank you, Nancy. Next, we have Kelly Brzezowski.
You did a nice job on my name, by the way. Most people don't get that one. So I am Kelly Lewis Brzezowski. I am the founder of the nonprofit Healthy Mature Living Foundation. Our first educational initiative is ablinfo.org, and we developed that in collaboration with Dr. Heidi Brown at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Dr. Brown and I have also published in the International Journal of Clinical Practice on the quality of life impacts of accidental bowel leakage as a symptom associated with many common conditions, including the functional gastrointestinal disorders discussed today. I will also separately state for the record that I am the founder of Butterfly Health, which has developed a new absorbent protection product called Butterfly, which some of you may have heard of. I am not your ordinary industry. I am the mother of 3 girls who, like all of you today, felt compelled to make a difference. I have spent too many years working with people who experience accidental bowel leakage not to be here today. The comment I would like to make and leave you with is that today I think we are listening and talking about symptoms, but failing to focus enough attention on the root cause and mechanism that cause these conditions, especially in the enteric nervous system. All of you here today reflect the experience of many years of living with a functional gastrointestinal disorder. Yet many more millions suffer in silence, wondering slowly what is happening to them, wondering who to turn to, especially when their physician tells them that test after test comes back normal. The thought I would like you to think about is how do we get at the mechanism so that we can help people sooner? Everybody that's in this room today is reflecting and representing nearly a lifetime of experience of something that has progressed. We need to better understand the mechanism of action if we are to get better treatments and better physician care, because all of you are right. Today, doctor education is one of the biggest opportunities that we face. The pharmaceutical companies will investigate mechanism when it is only financially attractive to do so. This is not happening sufficiently with the population here today. The FDA this morning spoke of the enteric nervous system at the start of this panel. If you look at any of the other neurological diseases, you will see that they share a common characteristic. They progress. Research on panic and anxiety would show that it gets worse, not better, if it's left untreated. If you look at diseases like MS and Parkinson's, they will show that the sooner you help the pathways, the understanding of the pathways, the better. Interestingly, with panic disorder specifically, the literature is very clear that behavioral treatment is more likely to reduce relapse.
Thank you, Kelly.
Today we have listened to stories of progression. I'd just like to ask the FDA, I hope that you can follow up this wonderful session with a nationally representative survey so that you can get national sampling on this topic, because I think it's far more prevalent than people realize. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, we have Ritu Verma.
Thank you. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, and I'm here to represent the kids. I do have children, but I'm here to represent the children with functional GI disorders. We have a wonderful center by the name of the Lustgarten Motility Center that has contributed money so that we can actually study children who have these conditions. I think the FDA has taken on a huge task. I wonder how you'll go from here. So first of all, I think from a children's standpoint, there's not just the child, but there's the child and the parent, and then there's a child and the school, and child and the friends. So all of those things affect the children. We've learned that this is not just a medicine, but here we have more to do with the function part of it. So child goes to school, has abdominal pain, the teacher does not believe the child comes home, is upset, and does not want to go back to school. So immediately it's thought of that this child has school phobia. It really is not school phobia. The child is in pain and in discomfort. So we need to educate the children, we need to educate the parents, and we need to educate the schools. So education has to be on many levels for the FDA to see that this is going to be a success. Partnership has to happen with parents. We have to agree that our children should be part of studies so that we can actually get more drugs. Partnership has to be with industries. Partnership has to be with insurance companies that do not allow the children to have these conditions, that they have these medications. I also think what we have not talked about here is non-invasive tests. No one talked about breath tests that are available for gastroparesis. So I think sharing knowledge is going to become important. So from my standpoint, knowledge has to be part of wherever we go with these functional GI disorders, and knowledge at many levels. There's so much work here to be done, and I really commend the FDA that you actually set up this forum, and I really am quite interested to see what happens next. It's not going to be an easy task.
Thank you, Rita. Next, we have Mary Berger. Mary, could you put your hands up? Okay.
I'm going to talk about some novel ways for drug companies to pursue other options to help with functional GI illnesses. In 2013, there was a trial done to look at IV Hemin for GP at Mayo Clinic. They told where in humans and animal models of idiopathic GP, there was a loss of the ICC cells, and that was needed for sufficient stomach emptying. And it was shown by another researcher, Nato et al., that heme oxygenase 1 is a target for gastrointestinal diseases. So Dr. Farrugia at Mayo said a critical role is oxidative stress. So why not look into other areas and avenues of fighting free radical formation? Antioxidants at higher levels. Because, for example, I started taking NAC and alpha-lipoic acid, and to increase the glutathione peroxidase in the mitochondria, and that started helping me. So more research into oxidative stress. Another thing is celiac disease. Half of the patients with celiac disease do have gastrointestinal motor abnormalities. Most of them have some form of functional dyspepsia that goes undiagnosed. So it would be good if we could find a better way to develop testing methods for those with celiac disease and use the ones we have in a more efficient manner. It doesn't even touch on the segment of population that has non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which probably have some form of motor impairment as well. But the key, I believe, to a cure lies in an article by Holzer et al. In Neuropeptides from 2012. What do NPY, PYY, and pancreatic polypeptide do in the gut-brain axis? Just look at figures 1 and 2. It's not a one-drug cure, but rather it's going to take multiple drugs
NPY in the brain has an effect on food intake, anxiety, mood, energy balance, and cognition. If this is out of whack, what happens? With NPY and Y1,
Thank you, Mary. Sorry, your 2 minutes is up. Please submit your comments to the docket. Next, we have Bruce Zagnett.
Thank you very much. I'm a compounding pharmacist, and first of all, I'd like to thank the FDA for allowing us to come in and speak about these topics. I'd like to thank the people who relayed their stories to us. It must be, on one hand, very difficult to relay those stories, and on the other hand, it must be very comforting to know that you're speaking to a group of people who really care. As your survey shows, 60% of the people who are taking domperidone currently, or taking domperidone in conjunction with other drugs. Domperidone is a highly effective, safe treatment or adjunct for gastroparesis and emesis with very limited side effects. The people who are getting those prescriptions are either getting them, most of them are probably not getting them through the FDA IND program, but rather are getting them from outside the country, from Canada or Australia, or from compounding pharmacies throughout the country who are doing it without the better wishes of the FDA. What I'm asking the FDA is to change the regulations, put domperidone on the positive list, and allow me and other compounding pharmacies throughout the country to provide this very vital, life-saving drug to our patients in hopes that it'll make it more accessible to them and there'll be a lot more benefit. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. And next we have Debbie Fisher. Debbie, where are you? Oh, okay.
Thank you. I just want to say that I know that there is no treatment that's going to work for everybody, but for those of us who have had good results with domperidone, it's really frustrating and disheartening to know that there are such efforts going on to restrict it from patients. There are drugs that are FDA approved like Reglan and Compro that have severe neurological effects that are irreversible, and they can only be used for a short period of time. People develop a tolerance to erythromycin. There are few alternatives, and the studies that have been done on domperidone, for the most part, that have shown any negative effects have been done on lactating women and people with pre-existing cardiac risk factors. So and finally, I just want to note that for the clinical guidance from the Journal of the American Association of Gastroenterologists notes that domperidone is generally as effective as metoclopramide with a lower adverse risk profile. And I just really hope that people will understand how important it is for patients who are suffering with this problem to be able to get hold of this medication that can be used safely, and to please put your efforts into maybe developing clinical guidance for doctors and compounding pharmacies and patients rather than making this drug not available.
Thank you, Debbie. And last, finally, we have Raymond Panas.
Hello, I'm Dr. Raymond Panas, and I'm an employee of Entera Health, which is a medical foods company. And first, I'd like to thank the FDA for putting this meeting together, and I'd also like to thank all the patients who provided their story for this afternoon. I would like to note that these meetings often discuss a variety of drugs, both prescription and over-the-counter products. They discuss devices, dietary modification, and various other therapies such as supplements, herbals, acupuncture, and other types of therapies. But often these meetings do not discuss FDA-regulated medical foods, which are usually not part of these discussions. And so I was curious what the FDA is doing to help support the study of medical foods and FDA-regulated medical foods for the management of GI disorders. And additionally, I would also like to see that the FDA include FDA-regulated medical foods in future discussions such as these as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now, before we get started with our last agenda item, I'd like to ask everyone to leave your clickers at the table, and we'll have staff pick it up. And also, we have evaluation forms. If you haven't gotten a chance to fill those out yet, please do. We definitely do read them. And so now, finally, I'd like to call Dr. Andrew Mulberg to the stand for the closing.
Thank you, Pujita. So within the spirit of staying within 2 minutes, I'll do my best so I won't be thrown off the stage. First of all, I want to thank Sarah Eggers and the Office of Strategic Programs and all of the staff that was involved in producing what, by far for me here, has been an amazingly empowering, powerful experience. I also wish to thank all of the panelists and the public speakers who shared tremendously honest and transparent communication regarding their signs and symptoms in a public forum. I find that as a physician not only heartwarming but truly educational, and I truly appreciate it. I think I'll just summarize this wonderful afternoon by saying that I've identified at least 3 issues that I know will be added to by all of us as we download from such a wonderful meeting. There's a need for additional pharmacotherapies and additional therapies to be developed for the unmet need that has clearly been discussed today. I was struck by the profound, repeated communication that there's really a significant ignorance in the medical community. Since I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist, I know Dr. Verma, there is no ignorance there. But for the adult community, there seems to be a need for education. Lastly, there is a tremendously justified unmet medical need that you've communicated to us today. And as has been communicated by everyone here, the partnerships amongst all of us with the device and pharma companies, with you as a patient community, and with us, with the academic physicians and us and regulatory agencies, we really do value this kind of input, and we look forward to sharing hopefully new therapeutic advances over the next few years, if not sooner. So thank you very much, and have a great evening.